Welcome to Classified Perspectives. Today, our discussion is going to revolve around who an African is and issues that deal with identity and our culture in modern day. This conversation revolves around what truly binds us as Africans, how we raise our children, how we see ourselves as Africans, and the kind of Africa that we want to leave behind. Today, I'm joined by a teacher of philosophy and a famous cartoonist, Dr. Jim Spire Ssentongo. And at this point, let me give him an opportunity to introduce himself and say hello to our viewers.
Well, as you introduced me, I'm Jimmy Spire Ssentongo. I teach philosophy. Mainly, I specialize in ethics and identity studies at Makerere, and I've also been teaching at Uganda Martyrs University. And also activism related to matters of justice, accountability, governance. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. To ground our conversation before we even start, what do you think defines an African? Or I would say, what defines an African according to you? Is it birth? Is it origin? Someone could even say that it's geography. According to you, who is an African?
That's quite a difficult one. I remember I wrote an article about 2 years ago titled, going actually by the same title, Who is an African? And it was basically trying to make sense of that common descriptor that we carry proudly. I'm an African, you wear the map of Africa, necklaces, wherever. But also the difficulty that whenever you're asked precisely to explain what you mean by African, it's not that
easy.
clear. There are things that come almost as self-evident, but when you try to question them, you realize they are problematic. Because all along, to me, Africanness was about blackness.
Yes.
And I just took it for granted.
Blackness of the skin.
Yes, so it had to do with pigmentation. So whenever I met, for instance, a black person, I'm in Europe, somewhere, UK, meet a black person, I feel I connect in some way, and I immediately get to suspect or to imagine that this could be an African.
Yes.
Yeah, but very quickly you realize that there are many people who have moved to Africa or who have actually been here since birth. They can count back generations of grandparents, and they have no other home apart from Africa. Are they Africans or not? How about the Swahili on the coast who count up to hundreds of years there? They are not really black, but I think they are also Africans.
Yes.
So it's a combination of things,
So many
but
factors. Yes.
I would say one, geography, that if one is a resident and a citizen of any of the countries on this continent, they are African, and that is in the legal sense. But also there is this Africanness that is about connection, attachment, because I can be a citizen, but not really identifying as an African. So it's about the connection to the soil, the connection to the affairs of the continent. But also we have to notice where this strong sentiment or attachment to Africanness comes from, and why, for instance, we easily connect to it compared to, let's say, people from Europe. I don't think you've met so many people who have introduced themselves as Europeans.
Yes, exactly.
That I'm a European or I'm an Asian. Maybe America, because almost the entire continent is a country. But why don't you meet someone identifying as a European and you meet, yes, or Asian, but as Africans, we identify as so. It mainly goes back to history. Because most African countries were colonized, I think with the exception of just about one or two. And that history of being colonized somehow built a bond between Africans, the bond that was built in the struggle for independence, the decolonization struggles. So the name Africa, actually, if you trace its history, it came from without. It is something that was thrown to us as an insult. It has to do with blackness.
Yes.
But during the anti-colonial struggles, we owned it as a symbol of resistance, as a rallying point for solidarity to fight against oppression. So it is that solidarity that brings so many people together to feel that when a Kenyan says they are Africans, a Tanzanian, Zimbabwean, you feel that somehow you're bound together by some kind of experience, but which was also strengthened by the first post-independence presidents, the work that they did together and how they made attempts at a Pan-African sort of arrangement, bringing the different peoples together, that we can only manage to liberate ourselves if we work together, if we see ourselves as suffering a common experience.
You've talked about colonialism and things that you've talked about that came with that, and most people usually attach our own problems that we have to colonialism. Do you think we should still be we should celebrate independence and still say that colonialism is responsible for the problems we have in society today?
I think the predicament of Africa is complex. It cannot be oversimplified in finding one particular issue as the problem, one particular factor. First, you cannot rule out all that history, slavery, colonialism. You cannot rule out. But at the same time, you cannot attribute all Africa's problems or challenges to colonialism or to slavery. It is complex in a way that all those factors contribute and they somehow come together and create a complex phenomenon that requires a lot in terms of disentangling for one to be able to know what you're addressing at a particular time. I know there has been a lot of rhetoric and propaganda sometimes as a way of running away from responsibility. If I'm a leader, for instance, and I've messed, the best way to run away from responsibility is to say it is these imperialists, it's these colonialists and what they did to us.
Yes, that is true.
Oh, now we are not going to allow them to come back. They are trying to mess us again. When actually, when you try to dig behind what is happening, you realize that as a leader, you're also responsible for what is happening.
It is your own fault.
Yes, like for instance, these young people who are going to desert countries for livelihoods, where one would ask 60 years after gaining independence or flag or political independence, whatever you call it, why would Ugandans be moving from an equatorial country that is endowed at least by nature to desert countries looking for opportunities? And where even, and sorry, it's not to politicize it, but where the president also comes out to blame them, to blame those who are going. But how can you move from here to go to those countries in the Middle East? The question should be
that we're living in tough times.
Yeah, the question would be, as a leader, you're supposed to know why is this happening. So the question should be, have we tried to address or to create an environment where our people would want to stay here?
Exactly.
An environment that enables our people, young people especially, to thrive. An environment that utilizes our vast resources and even to give direction and guidance, because as a leader you expect that not everyone behind you is going to have the vision or is going to have the ideas. So part of what you do is to give direction, to guide. If we do this and this, we can move to this point. Yeah, so when someone sees that happening and they say that either it is the people who are not taking advantage, or to say that we have an education system that does not enable us to see the opportunities, still the question goes back, who is responsible for that education system that doesn't allow young people to see the opportunities? So at times, it is a way of running away from
Yes, from
responsibility,
responsibilities.
and colonialism becomes a convenient punching bag
Yes.
because we know the sentiments around it that people will easily become emotive. Ah, those people and what they did to us, they came, looted, took all our resources. But after they left, all these years, yes, it's not to say that colonialism is entirely over. Neo-colonialism still continues in different forms.
Thank you so much for those wonderful insights. You've talked about education, and do you think there's need to be more work done in schools and institutions?
You may not exclusively look at education institutions or the education system. It comes right down from the family.
Yes.
Much as schools or the education system has contributed a lot to the alienation of our people, or to alienating us, I shouldn't exclude myself.
Yes.
But you ask yourself, when you look at your own home, do you see emancipation? Do you see a deliberate approach at liberating ourselves in the spaces where we have the power before we blame the
Yes. The
education
government. Yes.
institutions? Because these education institutions are simply an exemplification of what is happening in the rest of society, an exemplification of the alienation, both self-alienation, how we alienate ourselves, but also alienation that has come through what some scholars have called the culture industry, which is manipulation that happens through things like entertainment, the entertainment industry, through movies, through music. Yeah, that you think you're just having fun, but behind all that, there is culture that is being passed on. There is some sort of indoctrination or
Yes.
rewiring of
Yes.
the mind to shape what people appreciate and what they don't appreciate. When our children are watching cartoons, it is not just entertainment. They are not
Yes.
just seeing these small things running about and saying funny things. The children are acquiring tastes. They are acquiring tastes about language, tastes about accent, about what is acceptable, what is fancy, what is not fancy. So tomorrow when I try to talk to my child in Luganda, they'll feel like I'm taking them back to a world
Yes.
that is not really the world that they
Yes.
see on the screen,
Yes.
which
Exactly.
comes with a certain kind of status. That when they go to school, they are talking to their peers, their friends. They can talk about, oh, okay, have you watched Moana? Have you watched,
Nickelodeon.
yes, of those Nickelodeon things, Madagascar? But this is entrenching the English culture. And I'm not saying it is bad, that learning English in itself is bad. Our children should learn as much as they can. We
Yes.
should learn as much as we can. But I'm only talking about what we trade for that
Yes.
learning.
Exactly.
It's not really learning where you have to throw away what is yours in order to pick the other. I think learning is more progressive when it builds on what you are and what you have. You see how the Chinese have developed. They mostly build on their
Yes.
culture.
Yes.
They don't drop their language even when they learn English. When they get realized that English is now, I think, the most used language globally, they will learn it.
Yes.
But
Indeed.
they'll keep their what
Their
Mandarin
local
and all those
languages.
other
Yes.
languages. Same for the Japanese. Same for the Indians. But we seem to be now globally the people that have, to the largest extent, decided to abandon
Our
ours
own culture. Yes.
to pick from wherever. So we have become like some sort of a marketplace for all sorts of cultures. Whoever wants to influence, they
Mm.
come here because they know, okay, those ones will pick anything. We, at a certain point, had run into Indian soaps, and everywhere it
Yes.
was those Indian soap operas. Then we went into Telemundo, those that's South American
Yes. And at
stuff.
certain point also the ones from Korea.
Yes, and
Mhm.
now you find all sorts of schools. There is a Confucian school of what Chinese. There is the, and it is okay for
Mm.
those things to be there if we are learning and
Our
keeping
own.
ours. But
Yes.
what is happening is alienation.
Mm.
So we are the race that is struggling with changing our color to look
Like
white or to
white.
look like
Yes.
the other. We are the race that is struggling hard to adopt accent, whereby if someone has a European or American accent,
Mm.
automatically that becomes an indicator of intelligence. Not just an indicator that
Yes.
they know a language
Yes.
or they speak English well, but automatically we feel this is an intelligent person because of the way they speak. And almost immediately their status is
Yes.
raised.
He's raised. Yes.
If we are queuing up in a bank and there is someone talking through their nose, we can even give them our place in the queue. I say, msoke mumuleke I tell, just as we do for a white person. I don't know whether you've noticed, you've ever seen this. If you are somewhere waiting for a service and you're all standing
Mm.
and a white person comes in, you will notice that people feel the need to give the white
Yes.
person a
Yes.
chance to go first.
Yes. They give them a lot of attention.
Yeah, one would say that this is hospitality, but for me, it's not really about hospitality that we are always kind
Yes.
to visitors. It is just how we look at
Yeah.
ourselves. Because if a Nigerian came in who is also a visitor, we will not treat them the same way.
So why do we see
So
this happen? Where does it come from?
every behavior starts with influencing the mind.
Mm.
Um, if one is able to control your mind, then they'll be able to control everything you do. And that's why the struggle for domination globally starts with a struggle with controlling minds.
Mm.
It's why, as I said earlier, the culture industry, entertainment, and all that becomes very important. Why everyone would want to control
Yes.
that.
And it's
It,
beautiful. It's surprising that people don't take
yeah,
such
yeah,
industries very
because it
important.
is the conduit through which many of these influences pass. But earlier on, before we would get to that industry, although it was part and parcel of the indoctrination, when white people came here and found whatever we're doing, they knew that the best way to sort of extract us from our context, from our geography, and from our identity, and make us a being for them or a being for others, is to make us hate who we were. And now, when it came to our appearance, they even created hierarchies of human beings or hierarchies within the human race, whereby they placed the Caucasian on top. Now, that is the most refined, even in evolutionary terms, how human beings have been changing over time. So the white is the most refined, the Caucasian. Then you have the Asian somewhere there in the
Yes.
middle, and all those other races in the middle.
Yeah.
Asians, you would put some of the South Americans, and at the bottom of the hierarchy, you have the black
The
person.
blacks. Yes.
And that black person is a burden
They're
of
the
the
ones on
white
top.
person.
Yes.
So the white person has a divine obligation of civilizing the black who is at the bottom. So the light was brought by the white
The
people.
white. Yes.
Yes. Before that, it was darkness.
Mm.
So we used to sing. I think even now, Catholics, we still sing, long ago we walked in darkness, now
Now
we
you're
have
walking
the
in
light. So how there is another Luganda song, twandibadde tutyasinga Kristo teyajja, twandibadde waffe. Where would we have been if Christ did not come? There is the message of salvation itself. which is okay. But there is also this other message of saying that we were in darkness, we were doomed. So we become socialized into imitators of everything white, because the closer you are to whiteness and all its ideals, then the more civilized.
Yes.
So when our people go out, the first that were taken to get an education from Europe, when they return, they are the ones who are given leadership positions. They are the ones who become colonial officers, administrators, and everyone admires them, the way they speak, the way they dress. So everyone admires not only to be like them in terms of status, but also to drop this that we are still engrossed in. The rurality, the fact that you're a rural person, agriculture,
Yes.
an agricultural life, the rituals, the language, even the color.
Yes.
So when you get to the other side, you do not just get there to appreciate what is there, but you're uprooted, you're alienated. When you're alienated, it means that you're going to live a life of permanent mimicry. Permanent mimicry meaning that you're going to continually mimic what those people are doing. And as someone who is mimicking, it means that you can only progress at a pace that those you're mimicking allow you. You cannot go ahead of them. You have to wait until they innovate, and then you mimic.
Pick on that.
So when you come into a studio like this, you ask what is African here, you may not find it.
Maybe our shirts on.
These days, even these shirts come from China.
Yes, they're imported.
Yes.
From
So you'll find that right from the furniture to the equipment, everything imported. And then when something is missing, we wait until they make it, until they innovate. You say, oh,
and even when we make our own, we wait for them to validate.
Yes, to validate. And we are the first to dismiss what is from here. You often hear there is this language that might sound innocent or that appears to be about quality. There is original UK.
Yes.
There is used UK. Used UK is better than original Uganda. So the moment someone says used UK, the mind immediately communicates to you, this is a good thing. It's a good thing. But the moment you see made in Uganda, yes, there is an element that some things that are made in Uganda are of poor quality, and that's why some people would fear or have the hesitation about the quality. But it's also about the mindset, about the value systems that have been created.
And being willing to support these companies that are coming up.
Yes,
for example, I hear about Nightil that they make
very nice fabrics.
Yes. But I think just because it's a Ugandan company, so many people wouldn't be interested in checking out their products,
Yeah, so it becomes tough. There are many areas where you will look and you see our coloniality, or the fact that our minds have been manipulated and tuned to imitating whiteness. But as I said, we do not totally blame them for that, because actually that is what every part of the world is striving for. Because if you want to sell your goods, you have to tune people's minds to liking those goods and buying them. So every manufacturer or everyone who is into the business of producing, that's what they do. So it is our fault here that we have not tried to
give that attention,
to tune our minds, or to retune, or to decolonize our tastes. It hasn't really been deliberate in our education system, in our social structures.
Families.
You don't see deliberate attempts at doing that. You just see a few individuals, but who are also struggling, because it's very difficult to push against the tide.
Yes.
When you go to parliament, you're told the formal wear here is you have to wear a suit. Recently, there was a very disturbing event. I think it was the DVC here and someone else who had gone to Parliament to appear before some committee. And the chair of the committee told them that if they are not wearing suits, they should not go back. In fact, they wanted to chase them. They wanted to chase them that they were not appropriately dressed. And one of them was wearing a kitenge.
Yes.
Now, imagine if you cannot officially wear a kitenge in Uganda. Where will you wear it from? So what appears to be innocent, that this is the universal universal dress code for officialdom.
Yes.
It's not just about that. Who determines?
Exactly. That should be another
Yes,
question.
like some scholar said that the biggest power one can have is the power to define. The power to define what science is, the power to define what the right dress code is, the power to define what the right language is. For as long as you do not define, someone else is going to be controlling you, to be manipulating you through creating what is authentic, what is not authentic. So they define a dress code for us, and ours is to fit in.
Yes.
And then Parliament puts it in its documents that here you're supposed to either dress like this or you're inappropriate.
Yes.
Yeah,
then what needs to be done differently that hasn't been done?
In my view, what needs to be done has to be systemic.
Yes.
All these lone or individual efforts that are not coordinated, that are not complemented by central efforts, at a certain point they fail or they just become our private tests.
Yes.
For instance, like personally, I decided my dress code. If you have seen me, I was often been dressed
actually
like this.
When opposition was presenting an alternative budget, I was seeing you dressed in African wear, and I was quite happy.
Yeah, so wherever you invite me, and I'm not saying that I have a problem with other dress codes, that they are bad or what. I'm for free adoption. If I want to adopt a suit, it should be a choice, not someone telling me that this is what you're supposed to wear. So I make a personal decision that I will put on like this. You might inspire a few other people to make such decisions, but you might not inspire many, because most of us are operating through deeply entrenched attitudes that we have been socialized into from childhood. It's very difficult to change people in adulthood.
Yes, exactly.
I remember there was a time one of my students stood for a guild presidents here, and he consulted me for advice on what he could do differently. I told him, you wear kitenge, don't wear suits. So even your posters, just put on a kitenge shirt, you will look different, and I hope you'll be able to explain yourself. He failed. He was one of expected. Yes, he was one of those who performed very poorly. So later we were talking, and he told me, but what you did to me. Wherever I would go, I go for somewhere for a rally, and they say, you remove your vitenge dress. But that speaks to the mindset that if we do not systemically try to address that, try to emancipate the mind, as Bob Marley says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. If that slavery is not removed from the mind, you cannot change anything else. And where does that start from? It starts from homes. Many of us speak English at home.
Exactly.
Even when you and your spouse are from the same ethnic group, where at least you share a language. If maybe I'm Acholi and my spouse is Msoga, that's understandable. But you find a Muganda and a Muganda, a Munyankola and a Munyankola at home, they are speaking English. What message are the children picking from there? Is it going to be easy to change their minds in adulthood, it will be very difficult. We go with our children to villages and we get embarrassed, but helplessly embarrassed that they cannot communicate with their grands that cannot speak English or with their aunties. So it should start with the family, but the family has to be, what is happening in the family has to go along with what is happening in schools. If the family is moving in a different direction, the schools are working in a different direction, eventually the family will be defeated. Because our children spend most of the time in schools. They spend more time in school than at home. So you teach them this at home, they go to school, the school teaches something else. And even out there in other places of socialization, you find that there is no sync or no harmony in what we are socializing. Unfortunately, many of our people tend to think that these things cannot move together with working on other aspects of development. When, for instance, there is someone who has consistently been trying to push for changing the names around the streets in Kampala, called Apollo Makubuya Owekitiibwa. And he has consistently made the argument that our geography is still colonized. Why should we continue carrying names of colonial masters in Kampala? If we need to remember them, to celebrate them, let us put this in museums, but not on our streets, because on the street it is a form of celebration. Colville and whoever. But people, I often see the comments people make of all the problems we have. They think that we should be decolonizing streets. Let us first address poverty. Let us first address issues of unemployment. As if these cannot move together. Others can be addressing poverty as we as well address the decolonization agenda. Even with subtle, small things like naming. At a certain point in DRC, when it was still Zaire, Mobutu came up with, of course, Mobutu has his other side, the dictatorship and all that. But when it came to at least making some attempts to decolonize, he tried. He called it the authenticity policy, something like that, in naming, in dress code. So you find even up to now that many Congolese have two names, both of them Congolese. That their dress code, I think it is changing now as they go more and more French. But many of the authentic Vitenges are coming from Zaire. This was, to a certain extent, successful because it started from above as state policy. So it was easy for it to be complemented with practices from below. But here, even just those small symbolic or small gestures like naming, many people do not see the value.
Yes, exactly.
Jimmy Spire, Ssentongo, they are names that I was given by my father. Of course, in adulthood, when I become conscious to think about it. I already have these names everywhere, documents, and it's a bit difficult to go through the legal process of changing. But at least I made, I told myself that if I'm to have children, I should help them, I should save them from this baggage. I should try to give them African names, or I should try to give them names that inspire something African in them. So I'm only trying to show that it is difficult when it is coming from individual efforts and there are no syndicated or there are no efforts coming from the top. that are deliberate and measured or targeting particular aspects of our mindsets that are problematic.
This brings us to the end of this episode. Please do subscribe, like, and share.